Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. This is the weekly news wrap up, the WNW 182 for Friday, March 20th, 2015. My top story: Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, looks to be re-elected. He won and won big. And I predicted that the meddling by Obama supporters and some say even the president himself into the Israeli elections, by having former campaign people for the Obama administration. Yeah, I know they're free agents and they can go to work anywhere they want. And also the State Department giving out $350,000 to that were used by a couple of groups that were anti-Netanyahu groups. I said, that's going to backfire. That's going to backfire, and it backfired big time. So now what? What are the implications in the Middle East? Well, they're not good. No matter who was elected, they weren't going to be good. But Netanyahu, he came out and said he wasn't going to go on with the two-state solution. But not really. That's not what he really said. Basically, the Palestinian two-state solution, the peace deal, is on the back burner. And a lot of reports are really not accurately reporting that and not really reporting it correctly. Netanyahu didn't really cancel the peace talks. You have to remember they broke up more than a year ago, so he didn't just get up and walk out. They've been off since last spring. They've been off, completely done, and nobody has tried to get them started again. The other thing is, and this is the headlines around the mainstream media just dogging out Netanyahu. And here's one of the opinion section of USA Today, and it just talks about how Netanyahu's tactics leave the peace process as roadkill. That's not really accurate because they haven't had a peace process. It hasn't been going on for more than a year. And on the other side of this paper, let me put my glasses on here to read it. This is the other side of the opinion page here in USA Today. This is just past week, and Israelis, go with a firm leader. And in this was written by Daniel Mendel, and he is a Middle East policy expert. And he says, and I quote in his op-ed, largely unreported is Netanyahu's explanation about going away with the two-state solution, in which he stated clearly that under prevailing conditions, that the Palestinian state, establishing a Palestinian state, is a folly. And that's what I wanted to bring up, under prevailing conditions. What are the prevailing conditions? Well, as I said, the peace talks broke down more than a year ago, or about a year ago. There's been increased violence, between the Israelis and the Palestinians and Hamas, a Palestinian Authority. On top of that, Netanyahu also campaigned that he was going to be creating more settlements. That's going to be doing nothing but inflaming the Palestinians. And so, under the prevailing conditions, he didn't say it was totally off. He just said the conditions weren't good for this two-state solution. Of course, Netanyahu's not going to make it any better by starting more settlements in the West Bank. That's for sure. So my forecast for the Middle East and Israel's more violence both inside the borders of Israel and outside the borders of Israel. Israel is going to make a lot of headlines in the next 12 months, I guarantee you. And this is another thing that the Obama administration, another thing has been reported that the Obama administration, it's rumored and reported that the Obama administration is going to go straight to the United Nations to see if it can force the Israelis to engage in a two-state solution deal, which is something that the United States has long pushed for. They are going to try to force that at the United Nations. That's not going to go over well with the Israelis at all, period. That's a non-starter. And so expect a lot more problems coming up, a lot more violence, both inside and outside the borders of Israel. Meanwhile, the Obama administration is pushing to get a deal with Iran to curtail its nuclear program. Now, Iran has repeatedly said things like their programs for the peaceful production of energy. Iran says it's their right. They ought to be able to have, nuclear technology. They say they're not making a weapon, but Israel and lots of folks in the West aren't buying it. They say that if Obama cuts the deal that has been talked about, and the Israelis know the deal, the Arabs know the deal, people in Europe know the deal. The only people who don't know about the deal are the citizens here in the United States. It's a big secret. But Prime Minister Netanyahu says if you cut a deal, it's going to give Iran a pathway to a nuclear weapon. And a lot of people in the Arab world are very fearful, specifically Saudi Arabia. I think I've told you they have probably have already acquired some nuclear weapons already. And they say that as this deal progresses, that this is touching off a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Now, Israel already has, unofficially, 200 to 300 nuclear weapons. And now the other people are going to be getting nuclear weapons. So if there is a war, and I think one is coming, I think you're going to see this is going to be a nuclear war. This is going to be very destructive. And it doesn't look like they're trying to avoid a war. Also, on top of it, Secretary of State John Kerry, he came out and he's talking about this letter that supposedly, I think this is another misreported thing. It was supposedly sent to the Iran, but it really wasn't sent to Iran. It was just a published letter. That came out of 47 Republican senators. Now, they couldn't get any Democrats to sign up, but there's plenty of Democrats that are feeling nervous about the deal that Obama is cutting. And, he said that Kerry, when he was trying to allay people's fears, he said the Iranians have lived up to their part of the interim agreement made more than a year ago. And when I read that in this article, here, this is another USA Today article with Kerry. And when I read that, when I first read that, I thought, how does he know that? How does he know the Iranians have lived up to their part of the deal? Does he have U.S. inspectors there? No. Does he know about all the known sites? Has he had people looking at all the known sites and the unknown and secretive sites? No. Even Kerry himself sat in front of Congress and basically admitted that there were secret sites and there were sites that he didn't really know about. So how in the world does he know the Iranians have lived up to their interim agreement? He doesn't. Which tells me the Obama administration is hell-bent on getting a deal with Iran. And certainly over the objections of Israel. Certainly over the objections of Israel. And I think at some point, the Israelis probably have a plan that if this deal goes through, I think there's going to be some sort of military action, and it's probably going to come from Israel. But then again, the Iranians are setting up on the Israeli border, in the Golan Heights. The Iranians are setting up near the Golan Heights. That's where that general was killed, on the Israeli border, between Syria and Israel. So I don't know who's going to shoot first, but it's getting tense and getting tenser, more tense. And this is another thing that it's been reported: the Obama administration is going to bypass Congress, bypass the Senate, go right to the United Nations, and see if it can push this deal in the United Nations. And that is going to tee off a lot of Republicans and Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats that are not going to like them being usurped and going directly to the UN, which basically, he just says, forget, Congress and forget, our separation of powers and forget the Constitution. I'm just going to take it to the UN and get them to sign off on this deal. And I don't think that's going to go over well. I don't. Not with anybody, especially with Senate, because the Senate approves all treaties, and they're going to say, this is really a treaty. This is a big deal. This is a nuclear deal with someone on the list of state-sponsored terrorism. I mean, Iran is still on the list, the State Department list, where Kerry is the Secretary of State. They're on the list of state sponsors of terrorism, officially. And so I don't think that's going to go over again. And look for the deadline, was supposedly at the end of this month. Look for the deadline to get a deal done to be pushed back again. Close at home, have you heard about the realistic military training that's going to be happening July through September, the middle of July, middle of September? This year out in the western states, from California, all Colorado, all the way out into Texas. They got a map on it. And some states are partial to the military. Other states are not. They bring up the Tea Party. It's pretty spooky, kind of scary. And it's realistic military training. The operation is called Jade Helm. And it's part of a war game, and they're going to involve real citizens. This is on the front page of the Drudge Report, so this isn't some obscure item. And I think the timing of this is very suspect. I mean, July, middle of July to the middle of September. And many folks that I've had on here, good people, have been on here predicting that this fall we're going to have a financial calamity. I certainly have had many folks on here making that prediction. They're worried that it could happen, and it's going to happen in the September, October time period. Yeah, just right when this war game is wrapping up. And who says they couldn't extend it a month? I just think it's very, very suspect that this all of a sudden this war game is going on. Meanwhile, every major country has signed on to the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and this is a bank that's being pushed by China. And I'm talking about even the UK has signed on, France, Germany, Italy. Japan's been invited. South Korea's been invited into this bank and probably will join. Australia, Brazil, all the BRICS countries, India, Russia. Of course, China is leading the way. And you know what this is? This is a direct competitor, at the very least, to the U.S. dollar and the World Bank. Obama has been upset about it, criticizing our allies joining this this investment bank, the AIIB. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. This is a dollar alternative. And you see how things are kind of coming together here? And, this is, if this is happening, this is reported in the mainstream press. This is not some obscure thing. Now, the U.S. press isn't reporting on this because I really don't think they could add 3 and 3 and come up with 6. I think, math, numbers, that's what the U.S. press, they don't like it. But this isn't getting much reporting. This is not being reported much at all. And it's worrisome. When they do, I should say, institute this bank and they start using, yuan with all these swap facilities that are globally, including one in LA, incidentally, then they won't need as many dollars. And what did John Williams say? There's at least $16 trillion liquid dollar assets held outside of the United States. And what happens when a portion of that or a big portion of that or all that comes home? What happens if people say, wow, we don't need these dollars anymore? We're going to use yuan. Or as Jim Rickard says, well, they're going to use the SDR. A basket of currencies in which the yuan will be a part of. So will the dollar, but the dollar will be devalued. And that's the problem, that the dollar will be devalued. People will be selling their dollars and trying to take their paper and turn them into tangible claims. Therein lies the problem. That's inflation, folks. And it could be stunning inflation, especially for a country where nearly half the population gets paid by the government in some way, where we have nearly 93 million people no longer counted in the workforce, where we have, around 14 million people who are disabled, where we have, 47 million people on food stamps. Inflation? Oh, boy, it'll be crushing to poor people and people getting a government check. Crushing. It'll be a life-changing experience. Next up, Janet Yellen. Fed, patient no more. This is another USA Today article. I don't know where to start with this. She looks weak. She looks confused. She looks almost, but not nonsensical. In her talk, in her remarks. And the Fed is no longer going to be using the word patient. Before, several months ago, they said they were going to be patient in terms of raising interest rates. Well, they took that word out of the forward guidance. Patient. They just took it out. And remember Greg Manarino last week? I told you I talked to him, and he said, boy, be on the lookout for patient. That's going to be a big key. Well, Janet Yellen and the rest of the news organizations must watch USAWatchdog.com. So what happened Monday and Tuesday before this meeting? Patient, 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 patient. Will the Fed remain patient? Is the Fed going to take patient out of the... Wow, that's pretty big call. Manarino said that the markets would likely sell off, but probably Janet Yellen watches USA Watchdog and the weekly news wrap-up as well, because here's what she added when she took patient out, and she said, quote, just because we remove the word patient from our statement doesn't mean we're going to be impatient, in terms of raising interest rates. Yeah, I mean, does the Fed head Janet Yellen know how absolutely ridiculous she looks? I mean, she wants to have it both ways. She wants to be strong, and she wants to, well, we're not going to raise rates, tell everybody, because she knows if she raises rates, the economy, which we all know is a fraud, will crash. She knows it. She knows what I know. She knows what you know. And Gregory Mannarino thinks that they're getting set up for another round of money printing, which is what Lawrence Kotlikoff, my latest guest, said, that they're going to probably likely print more money. They've already printed a lot of money. And he came up, we have what $5 trillion we're on the hook for in 2014, not 480 billion or whatever the ridiculous number they gave out. John Williams, as I said, he says, hey, they're going to probably get into trouble. Economy's going to spiral downward, and it is. We've had bad manufacturing numbers for 4 or 5 months in a row, bad retail numbers for at least 3 months in a row, a spike in unemployment. The economy is not doing well. This is a fantasy. Even Gregory Mannarino says that, one of the things he seized on was he said Yellen said the economy is moderating. Oh, you mean it's slowing down? You mean it's spiraling downward? Mannarino also thinks there'll be real negative interest rates. They're already, 0 to 0.25%, which effectively is zero when you consider even the phony inflation rate by the Fed. But he thinks there'll be negative interest rates, and I think he's right. And here's another one for you, too. I think that this fall, and I'm just going to say, reality is going to meet fantasy. Reality is going to collide with fantasy this fall. I, too, think we're going to be in for a real, the stars are lining up for a real problem this fall. And it will be life-changing, especially for the unprepared and the poor. And I just want to bring this up because I think this is a way underreported story. And being a farm boy, it scares the daylights out of me. And this is, they're talking about the Western drought. Now look at this. And I want you to look real close here. I want you to look how the scope of this drought. This is a big bridge. I mean, a big bridge. This is probably, a half a mile span, maybe at least a quarter of a mile. Look at that drought. That is unbelievable. And it's they got some rain, but it's unabated. And I'll tell you something else. And here is the real scary thing. And I'm surprised that this has got met with a big yawn. State reservoirs contain only enough water for about a year. This is in California. Now, the whole West is dry from California, to Texas. But the real dry spot is California. I mean, California, if it was a country, what would it be? The 7th or 8th economy in the world, 6th economy? It's huge. Huge agricultural component in California. They're irrigating these crops. What happens if they run out of water to irrigate with? I mean, add that to the list of problems. We have an unstable world, a very unstable Middle East. We have a financial system that is teetering, that is so insolvent it's not even funny, and so overbloated with debt, even the Bank of International Settlements, it's 1,000 trillion, it's a quadrillion. That's on the safe side. That's the official number. They're willing to admit a quadrillion of derivatives. And then you add this. Look at that bridge, folks. That is not a little tiny, that's a half a mile span? That is, that a year left. I mean, this is shaping up to be the perfect storm of trouble for not only the United States, but the world. And this couldn't come at a worse time. Pray for rain for those folks out west, especially for the folks in California. I had a little trouble this past week. I had some technical troubles where we have worked through the technical troubles. I think we have them all fixed. I'm sorry about the downtime on the site. That kind of stuff does happen. I appreciate all your concerns. You wrote me and were worried, but don't worry. Everything's okay. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for supporting USA Watchdog with your donations. It helps us. That's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Remember, fear not. Protect yourself and get ready, get ready physically, mentally, and above all, spiritually. Fear not.